Right, so today's episode is going to be quite a bit different than usual. To start off with, I don't know what I think of the episode overall. I will say that theoretically and conceptually, it's really good. There are a lot of good things about this episode. The spiders, or the bacteria rather, really cool. Little Courtney Woods, although, not that great of a presence in the episode. I thought the actress did a good job considering her age. Definitely much better than the kids that Clara used to watch. And just conceptually overall, it was a really good episode. But then something happens at the end of this episode. You all know what I'm talking about. And that's what I'm going to be focusing on today. So, yeah, let's start the episode. Right then, as I said, main thing I'm going to be focusing on here is the end of the episode. Primarily, my internal debate as to who I'm siding with on this, Clara or the Doctor. And before I get into most of that, just to kind of get this out of the way, as far as the track of the episode goes, I listened to the soundtrack, and it sounds good, but to be completely honest, if there's a track of the episode, it's when there's silence in the background. It's when there's nothing going on. Because honestly, I felt that was some of the best moments of this episode, is when there was no music in the background. It just made everything so incredibly tense, so just nerve-wracking. I love that. So, as strange as it may seem, the track of Kill the Moon is when there is no track playing at all, in my opinion. If you have a different opinion, please do let me know. As for a quote of the episode, I'm not going to be really naming any quotes overall in the discussion here, but one line in particular that just really made me laugh out loud was when the astronaut Lundvik, I believe is her name, they're referring to Courtney posting pictures of the Doctor on Tumblr, and Lundvik says, "My gran used to put things on Tumblr." So it's like, it's so far in the future, like, used to put things on Tumblr, so apparently, at that point, conceptually, Tumblr is long gone. So I found that really funny. Found that really interesting. And also, even though I kind of referred to a few things here or there in the little intro sequence there, if you have any favorite parts of this episode, any least favorite parts, please do let me know in the comments down below. As I said earlier, I found this episode to be overall, conceptually, just about perfect. It had so many good elements, so many scary elements, that I just absolutely loved it. But as for how I feel on the episode overall, I feel like it hinges on what my overall thoughts are as to that final confrontation, that final talk, argument, between Clara and the Doctor, and the instances leading up to it. So, if there are any jump cuts here, I do apologize, but I didn't write any of this down. I want it to be as off the cuff as possible. So yeah, on first thought, just on gut feeling alone, I honestly side with Clara on this, because, let alone the fact that she has a kid with her. It's like, a 15-year-old girl, who has never experienced any of this before, other than that one trip she took with the Doctor to toss a body into space. Even if it was just her with the astronaut, being completely left alone by the Doctor to make such an important decision I can't imagine what that would be. I can't imagine what that would feel like. And as far as the way that Clara handled it initially, by basically doing a sort of poll of the planets, I can't say that I would have, or that I would have voted differently. It's like, if the chances are, if this thing hatches, it's going to destroy the planet. We don't know. They didn't know. yeah, I don't know that I would have been, willing to let it live myself. But on the same at the same time, I don't know that I wouldn't have made the same decision that Clara did at the last second and, stop them from killing it. It's that aspect of it by itself is so hard for me to just wrap my head around, because those kind of decisions, especially when it's on a planetary basis, it's not something you can take lightly. Obviously, because even though Clara wouldn't be living through it at that point anyway, she may still be alive in 2049. It's hard to say. There's already been so much destruction, and even if... well, think of it this way. Even though the big bug thing, whatever it was, it kind of... I don't know how to describe it. It kind of looked like a moth almost, but at the same time, it just kind of looked really weird. It was a bug of some sort, but I don't know what it was. But even though it laid the egg there, they were on a beach. How was there not any seismic activity going on at that place and time? Because yes, there is a large, heavenly body, I guess that's one way to put it, in the atmosphere, or outside the atmosphere where the moon once was, that might have some of its own gravity. But the fact that the thing was, one, moving around, and then left an egg that we don't know if it's the same size as the moon. I figure there would have been so many things that could have gone wrong that I don't know. It's like, everything went perfectly, obviously, because it's Doctor Who. It's a show, and they made it that way. But at the same time, it just as easily could have backfired, and it could have been the absolute wrong decision. Which brings me to the Doctor's side of it. Now, like I said, I sided with Clara on first instinct, on gut reaction there. But the Doctor also knew that in 2049, something occurred that would cause humanity to go into space, that caused them to reach out to the heavens, and the human race, again, in the Doctor Who universe, continues for eternity. So, obviously, the Earth couldn't have ended at that point, so at that point in time, maybe, no matter what the decision that was made, no matter what the result ended up being, it would be the right decision. But at the same time, the Doctor initially was against, in his language, you could tell he was against the killing of an innocent life. Which is what Clara sided with. I don't know if she was kind of like had the Doctor's voice in the back of her head when that happened or what, but and it could have been one of two things. Either, no matter what the decision made, it would have worked as far as the timeline goes, or there's only one correct decision, and it was the one that Clara made, because it's what the Doctor wanted. And, honestly, this does kind of hurt my head. I may just leave all this in so you can see me struggling. Because this episode. And then when we get to the part where, Clara starts yelling at the Doctor, and the Doctor just seems way too pleased with himself. Again, this is another aspect in which I side with Clara initially. He seems way too pleased with himself and just like, yeah, everything worked out, huh? And the fact that Clara went off on him, I don't blame her at all, because again, it's like, it seems like he knew what was going to happen. Like, he wasn't letting on everything he knew. Which, it may have literally been, like he says, like, it was a gray area. He can't see exactly what happens. But it's like it's been said before, the Doctor lies. What is it, rule number 1, the Doctor lies? Something along those lines. And I cannot say that I wouldn't have felt exactly the same way that Clara did. what was her line? Tell me the truth, or tell me, or I'll slap you so hard you'll regenerate. I mean, yes, that is a threat, and, that's not a good thing to do as someone you're so close to, but, I mean, that was definitely just a very strong, passionate moment, and I don't know many people that wouldn't have felt the same in such a similar circumstance. Again, especially with a young child, well, a 15-year-old child, in their stead. It's like, she was not only responsible for herself and the human race, but she was in charge of making sure Courtney came home safely. So it's just all those emotions. Again, I can't, it's really hard for me to blame Clara for the way she reacted, for what she said to the doctor. And the doctor, he's like, he's very much confused. As usual, in his mind, it's apparent that, he did the right thing. He left this decision up to the humans. He left, this course of events, this aspect of history, future history, whatever, be decided by the humans. But at the same time, how many times has he either, jumped into a situation like that and changed things, or seemingly changed things but made it progress the way it happened in history anyway? Pompeii, for instance. And I lost my train of thought. Well, yeah, even with Pompeii, it was one of those situations where what happens is essentially his doing, and it was a matter of Earth. It was a matter of the Earth's history. But the doctor got involved then. Why couldn't he get involved now? And it's like, again, it's like Clara says at the beginning, he walks among the humans. He breathes their air. That is his moon too. He basically lives there. I mean, he goes other places in the universe, obviously, but like his main area, seemingly, is Earth. So, yeah, that should be his concern as well. Or at least one would think so. And that may boil down to something having to do with this particular personality of the Doctor. He's definitely much more alien than the previous modern Doctors have been, at least in my opinion. And very... I honestly do feel like, this iteration of the Doctor, or this incarnation of the Doctor, there are times where he's just very narcissistic. And I don't know. I keep coming back in my mind to I'm forgetting the name of the episode. Basically, the first episode of Series 8 here, where the Doctor just leaves Clara all on her own, in that chamber by herself. He just runs away, which, it all, it works out in the end by him taking the disguise of one of the people and all that. But at the same time, it's just like there's elements of this Doctor's personality that are really hard to come to terms with, especially when you look at it from just like, a human's perspective, a regular human's perspective. I mean, if anyone else were to run away like the Doctor did, most people would consider him a coward. And let's face it, like, if it was anyone but the Doctor that just left them there and then came back at the last second and took them down to Earth, it's like we would still see that person as a coward. But because it's the Doctor, it's almost like the writers are trying to tell us that's like, oh no, this was the right decision. This is what he needed to do. But was it? Was it really? I mean, yes, he is an alien. He has lived many lives. He has lived hundreds, well, I guess at this point, thousands of years. But just because of that, does that make the running away any less cowardly? And well, this is one, the cowardly line, or describing the Doctor as cowardly was something that came to mind before, and it brought me back to the Ninth Doctor, my personal favorite Doctor. And I remember it was his final episode, The Parting of the Ways, and not Davros, but was it the Supreme Dalek? What was it you say, like savior, or maybe it was like destroyer or coward? And the Doctor says, "Coward, any day." And I don't know, in my mind, that idea, or that calling himself a coward in that instance, and the actions he decided on were much different than the kind of coward he seemed to be, at least from my perspective, in this episode. Or actually, maybe not. Now that I think about it. Although, again, the Ninth Doctor is my favorite. I mean, by being a coward, the Doctor was essentially condemning everyone on the planet Earth to death by Dalek. By allowing the Daleks to live. Well, he would destroy all the lives on Earth as well, but there would be humans out there somewhere. Man, this is the absolute most conflicted I have ever felt about any Doctor Who episode ever. And I don't feel like I can't choose a side, because I feel like both sides are wrong in their own ways. But at the same time, I also feel that the Doctor might be a little bit more wrong than Clara is. I don't know. It's just bleh. It's just really complicated. And one thing else that comes to mind, the way that Clara, blows up on the Doctor. I can't help but wonder if that would have even occurred, or if it would have been that severe had Danny not told her what he did in the previous episode at the end. And then, he keeps, what is it, like the second time he said the line, you're not, again paraphrasing, you're not really done with them because you left when you were angry. You need to say that when you're, tell them you're done when you're calm. Which has some wisdom to it, but there are people that make emotional decisions and they're the right decision. Not always, obviously. But, I don't know. I just don't know. I wanted to be able to pick a side on this. I honestly did. I wanted to be, not neutral on something for once. But no matter how I look at it, I can't see the Doctor as being completely in the right. I can't see Clara and the decision she made as being completely in the right. Nor can I see either one as completely in the wrong. Yeah, I just don't know. And let me say this, I'm sure that, some of you all have probably already commented down in the comments, but whatever you discuss here, because this is an episode that seems to have brought out, a lot of emotions in people. But however the discussion goes on this, whatever you all have to say about it, please keep it civil. Because I feel like this is one of those episodes that can definitely spring some of the biggest emotions. Again, just based on comments I've seen before. So yes, please, while discussing this episode down below, please keep it civil. You all are amazing. You're some of the absolute best subscribers and followers I could ever imagine to have. But just because of one extremely controversial episode, among many controversial episodes, let's not let it fall apart. Keep the discussions civil. Don't go to any personal attacks or anything like that. Just keep it civil. And no matter if you're far on the Doctor's side, if you're far on Clara's side, or you fall in the middle. Everyone has their opinion for a reason. Everyone has their opinion of this episode for a reason. And for me, I don't know if it's just that I'm overthinking it, and I can see each side, or however many sides there are, and that just makes it an even more complicated decision for me, or what. But yeah, I simply cannot come to... I can't decide on one side or the other. Again, I think Clara and the Doctor are both right and wrong in this, in different ways. Possibly equally so. There are times, admittedly, again, because of my gut reaction to this episode, that I kind of, ever so slightly, side more with Clara. But after thinking about it, and after thinking out loud here, I fall in the middle. And there's no way I can say one or the other was absolutely right or absolutely wrong. Because it's so incredibly hard for me to wrap my head around. Maybe some of you catch on to things a lot better than I do. I mean, I know I've seen in the comments and even some messages. Every now and then some of you all will notice things that I missed, or you'll point out things that I've missed or maybe that I've forgotten. That is entirely plausible, that is entirely likely. But for me, there's no way for me to pick a side with this episode. There isn't. So that still leaves me very torn as to my feelings on the episode as a whole, because that ending had such a major impact on it. Like the episode had a lot of really good elements. You know, I'm sure some people would complain about Courtney Woods, but in my opinion, the girl did a fine job, especially for an actor her age that obviously isn't very experienced, but she did a decent job. She did a decent enough job, and definitely wasn't as bad as the kids, again, from the previous season. But conceptually, the episode was really, really good. Really good. And yes, I find the idea that the moon is an egg to be very interesting. I know a few of you all have said that it's a dumb idea, but honestly, it's science fiction. Back in Tennant's era, the center of the Earth, the core of the Earth, is made up of a spaceship that came before the formation of the Earth, and then the Earth formed around that spaceship. So the egg thing really isn't all that far-fetched, in my opinion. So yeah, the egg thing, I'm okay with that completely. And I'm sure you noticed, but I didn't write, there was very little text, if any, in this episode, and that's just because it was way too unstructured for me to really bother with that. I wanted to get this discussion out there. And please do let me know if, what I've said here, if it sounds like just flat out gibberish. Don't be a jerk about it, but if what I'm saying, whether it makes sense or not, whether anything I said, here makes sense or not, and let's have a good discussion on this episode. Maybe some of you all can, help me see a little bit better on either or both sides of the argument when it comes to Clara and the Doctor. But I will say, this episode is right at the end. It is one that made me. It made me see Danny a bit differently. Like, he didn't really do anything, but at the same time, I don't know, I kind of got this condescending vibe from him, if that makes sense at all. And again, it's just right at the end when they're talking, but I just got this very condescending vibe from him, and I didn't like that. But, maybe I'm just reading into it more than I should. And wow, I talked about this episode for a long time. If any of you are still here after that long rambling session, I commend you, and I thank you very much for joining me for episode 93 of Discovering Doctor Who: Kill the Moon. I don't even think I said the episode in the introduction or at any point of this episode. Again, thank you all so much. Keep the discussion civil. Let me know what you thought about this episode overall. Take a look at the soundtrack, and if there are any particular tracks that you really liked, please do let me know. But again, just for me, the silence worked best. Overall, it really did. And so yeah, again, sorry for such a strange and different episode, but I felt like it was necessary after finishing it this morning when I watched it. So yeah, everyone. I'm PapaKenn, and I will see you next time for the next Discovering Doctor Who, which will be Flatline. Alonzi!